How we doing, everyone? MJS back again with another video here. We are in the podcast studio. Stay tuned on the channel. Make sure you're subscribed and everything to see the culmination of this. We've been working on it heavily. We're a little bit better lit. I'm still trying to figure that out. But all that aside, I have wanted to make this video for probably 2 years, ever since I started getting into the filming equipment and the podcasting and all that sort of stuff. To give you some context, when I started Fueled by Progress and Amanda and I started AM the PM, we didn't know anything at all about podcasting, and we've learned a ton. Obviously, we did a lot of research, talked to a lot of people, tried things, failed, experimented, all that sort of stuff. So what I want to do today in this video, as you can see by the title, is show you and walk through what I think is a very high quality and mobile podcast studio setup that you can take and you can set up. The reason that we did it was because we were operating out of my parents' house and outside in a shed that had no air conditioning, no heat or whatever. So whenever we were doing it, we would pack up these things that I'll show you, these big boxes of stuff here that we'll get into. Everything fits into it. But the point is that if you want to do something and if you're starting a podcast, I'm not going to say this is out of your price range, because personally I think that you should be willing to invest. I think a lot of times that gives you more motivation. If your product, it's going to make your end product better. 100%. We'll get into some of that when you see the different things that we added into this setup. But if you're just starting out, it might be a little over the price range, but it doesn't really matter, because a lot of these things are you don't have to use these items. These are just the ones that we decided to use. So you could pick certain pieces of it. I just hope you get some value out of this, because it was fantastic for what we're doing. We are, like I said, we're in the midst of actually using a real space now. So this room right here will fully be for the podcast, so we don't need to do that mobile aspect anymore. But before we totally transition out of that, I needed to make this video for anybody that is in this certain situation. And for just any reason, if you need to have a very high quality, I would say still pretty affordable, and mobile podcast setup. And again, it doesn't even need to just be podcast. It could be anything. It could be studio. You could, there's a lot of things you could take from this. So, with all that context out of the way, let's get into, I'm going to go one by one, the items that we built for this setup, we purchased and we, have kind of built this setup with. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about them. I'm not going to go super in-depth technical. You can look at them individually. These aren't reviews of every single item. Anything that comes to mind, any pros, any cons, I'm going to give them to you. But let's just get into it. So I want to start out with the camera, just because that was the first thing that we purchased, because I was using it for many different things. And it's the one that I'm looking into right now. It's the Sony ZV-1. It's a great little point-and-shoot camera, very compact. Fantastic microphone on it, so if you want to do other stuff, it's a very multi-purpose thing. I mean, I use it for all the vlog content, everything like that. It's 4K. The big things that I would say that I learned and that I would say are the most important if you're going to do long-form content, a longer podcast, half an hour, is you need a camera that is going to record for longer than 30 minutes. There's a lot of cameras that shut off after 30 minutes or something, and that's not ideal. So you definitely want something that's going to do that. You want something that's going to be powered, and this camera is, and so you could plug in, and also I have extra batteries for it, everything like that. We'll talk about that. But I really want to say though that this one is right off the bat here. There's kind of some cons to it. It definitely overheated a lot when we were in a space that was not properly air conditioned, because we're filming at 4K for a long period of time. It's not really meant to do that. So as much as I love the camera that I'm looking into right now, there's really actually a better option, and that would ultimately be a camcorder, and that is something that we upgraded to, the Canon Vixia G50. So the reason that you'd want to do that and upgrade to something like the Canon, or any sort of camcorder, it could be Sony makes camcorders as well. The reason you'd want to do that is because they are meant to just stream. They're bigger, and they're also meant to stream for longer things. So truthfully, that's the biggest thing that I learned, honestly, again, right off the bat, is that the camera matters a lot in long form video content, because I had a lot of situations where, like I said, overheating, or the battery would die, or just all sorts of little stupid stuff. Luckily it was pretty good, but I would say definitely a camcorder, you're going to have way less issues in that regard. Now, I will say, I want to add prices in all this, because that's pretty important in my opinion. The Sony right now, I just looked at all these prices. The Sony's about $750, which again, you tell me if that's like within your budget. Obviously, you could just use your phone too, but again, I mean, these things like overheat and stuff like that too. So it really depends on a lot of, take this information and form it into your own idea for your podcast and everything like that. So the Sony's like $750. This Canon is like $1,000, like $1,100, somewhere around there. So it's a little different, but again, depends on what you're trying to do. I would say probably gonna end up upgrading to a camcorder. That's what everyone uses. Ultimately, if like a Joe Rogan's of the world, and like they are using camcorder just for that longer form content. So if we're continuing on the filming aspect, what I'm again looking at is the Sony ZV-1 sitting on a Manfrotto tripod, which is, let me check my cheat sheet, is $65. I've only really had like 1 or 2 tripods, like just the different things that I've tried to mess with, and this one's fantastic. It goes super high. There's a lot of adjustments on it as far as like the way that you can position the camera. You could even do vertical and stuff like that. You just need a tripod. Maybe you don't need that one, but that one's fantastic. Again, I didn't mention this. Links and everything are going to be in the description down below as well as on the website. So you can check everything out. But yeah, a tripod. We'll leave it at that. The one I have, fantastic. I would highly recommend it. The last thing about the camera setup is you're going to need a memory card. Again, depending on what you're doing, how much you are, like how long the content is, and if you're filming in 4K, you're going to need probably a big card. I have a 256 Sony Tough card in there right now. That card is like $100. I think I got it like $100. It's like $130 right now. You probably don't need that, but it is something to consider. Again, you don't want what. Just as a quick interjection here on the podcast thing, the most disheartening thing about like having a really good 3-hour conversation is like learning later that somehow something got corrupted, or the camera, like again, the camera died, it overheated, there was a problem with the memory card. So I'm not saying to buy the absolute best thing in the world, but I would consider, maybe don't buy the cheapest. So again, take that with a grain of salt, but you're going to need a memory card, a camera, and probably a tripod. And again, there's a variable there as far as the quality and the pricing. So that's our setup for the video side of things. You could add more cameras, something that we're probably going to do when we have an actual, location here, like a setup thing. We'll obviously update on that. But I would probably just go with the one camera and then something like that. Let's move on to the audio side of things, because that is extremely important, because a podcast is, like, I don't know what the statistics are, but there's probably a lot of people that are actually going to listen to the podcast rather than watch it, and it's more of like an audio experience. There's probably some visual stuff in there, but if you're just starting out, you probably just want to have a conversation with like a buddy. So do not, like, if you're going to skimp, I would honestly skimp on the video side of things, because there's nothing more irritating to me, and I think a lot of people, like, subconsciously, like, if your audio quality is bad, people are going to turn it off. Like, it's remarkable how, like, people have really good ideas for shows and episodes and podcasts, but then they have bad audio, and it's like, this is a terrible experience. Nobody wants to watch, nobody wants to listen to this or watch it or whatever. So that would be my recommendation, is if you're going to skimp, if you're going to start, smaller, all the video stuff, take that into consideration, but really focus on this next segment here with the audio. So again, many ways to do this, but here is what we came up with based on the research, and it's delivered a fantastic result for a reasonable price. The first thing that you're going to need, and this is probably like the most confusing, is again, if you're focused on the mobile, something like this is fantastic. There are alternatives, but the Zoom H6 audio interface, it's like an audio like recorder. You have levels and everything. Obviously, you have multiple tracks. You can do, like, you can even get like separate things for the attachments for the top, like microphones and stuff like that. I think it actually comes with a couple, but it has 4 inputs for microphones, like XLR cables, and that's another thing. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's like, it's just a different type of cable. It's like an audio cable. Okay, so the point here is that this thing is literally fits in the palm of my hand. Okay, and you just pop a memory card in here, just like you'd pop in a camera. And then you can record, again, 4 separate tracks. So, like, let's say that you have 4 people, or 2 to 4 people or whatever, on a podcast episode. You can record them individually, and then later in the production, like, you literally, like, you have a file in that SD card with 4 separate things that came from each of their mics. So, again, probably relatively basic for some people, but that's really important, because if you're just, like, The way me and Amanda started out, actually, and I should have probably put this at the very beginning because this is the way. This is literally like the easiest way to do it. But again, we're taking a slight step up here on this high quality mobile setup. It's akin to like you taking your phone and a friend taking your phone and just like talking into them independently and then syncing that up afterwards. This takes that and puts it on steroids, obviously, because it's a lot better. It's all synced up already. You're good to go. Once you press record, like all of the tracks and everything are on there. So it's fantastic. It saved us a lot of time and energy and aggravation. But you could go that route as well. One thing that I will mention here as we go towards the microphones and everything is that you do want to pay attention to all of the little ancillary things, like for instance the microphones. When you're using like a phone microphone, you're getting a lot of like interference, echo, background noise and stuff like that. Once we get to these microphones, we'll talk more about it. It's a lot better experience because it only captures the person talking directly into it. And that's something you kind of don't want to make the mistake of when you're purchasing a microphone because, again, why spend $40 on a relatively shitty microphone when you can spend a little bit more and get a great microphone and great sound quality? That's just my personal opinion on there. But going back to the Zoom H6, it's about $350, so it's a little bit of an investment. But again, this is literally like you could just get this, and like you're doing fantastic. And then you can plug in again any microphone. All you need to do that is you need an XLR cable off Amazon, like a 6-foot one, male, female end. What is that? Like $11 each. So 4 of those. If you're doing a 4-person podcast, you're only like $40, $50, and then one of these. And you could do different things here too as well. But this is a super simple solution, and you probably can't see most of this stuff, so I apologize. But there you go. Look at that. Look at that. It's just a splitter. All it is an audio splitter. So you plug in the male end into the Zoom H6, and then the female ends go into your headphones. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. This splitter is less than $10, and what that gives you is it gives you an actual good experience when you are podcasting, so you and your guests can hear, like they're locked in, and they can hear exactly what they're saying and what you're saying, and you're not doing this weird thing where it's like, first of all, the biggest thing is that you're actually being recorded because this thing lets you know, like it says that it's recording, and also you can hear everything, so you know that the tracks are set up and everything like that. I would highly recommend headphones. Could be any headphones, but again, when we were building this, I wanted something that was like over the ear, relatively comfortable, decent quality, but not like anything crazy. So what we have here, again, is the splitter is like less than $10. These headphones are Audio-Technicas. They're the M20Xs. They're like $50. They have better stuff. They have less quality stuff. They have cheaper stuff, whatever. So that'll give you a great like listening experience. And obviously we haven't talked about the microphone yet. So let's do that right now. What we have here is, again, what I would say is probably the best solution on a budget with fantastic quality. I mean, so this kind of looks like all like one thing here, but if I take off the XLR cable, we have 2 pieces of items here, okay? So we'll zoom in for effect. We have this stand that you can see, and we have a microphone attached to it. Now, this microphone just screws on here, simply, comes like this. Everything's pretty standard, relatively standard. I think there's only like 1 or 2 ways that you can kind of do things on here as far as connections and stuff in like the audio world. Alright, so we got, this is a Rode pod mic, okay? This is about $100, and it's literally built like a tank. It's heavy, it's serious quality, it's fantastic. I can't say enough about it. When you hear podcasting, and you hear like Joe Rogan and all that sort of stuff, you're going to hear the word Shure SM7B, alright? It is a very high quality radio broadcaster microphone that everyone has just because it's like the best of the best. It's $400 each. We got 4 of these for the same price, and it sounds basically the exact same. Audiophiles will be crazy and tell me it's nowhere near as close. I'm just going to say that it is absolutely on par with it. Like it's actually incredible what they were able to do for $100 there. I would highly recommend these. Out of anything else, like if you're again, don't skimp on the audio. I would highly recommend these pod mics because it was just like a complete blessing that I found those, because everybody else is using like either like a USB microphone or a Blue Yeti, and I haven't really specifically used them, but again, the audio that comes out of those is amazing. Not an audiophile, do more research on that, but I would highly recommend those. this part of this, the stand, okay, that goes on that the microphone goes on, kind of an annoying, it's definitely annoying. I can't recommend these nearly as much as I recommend the pod mics, although these are pretty good. Here's the issue, and what we're trying to tackle in our new setup, is that if you can kind of imagine here, and if you've watched any of our Fuel by Progress episodes or whatever, I'll links below, I hate this whole concept where there's so much stuff in front of your face when you're looking across the table trying to talk to somebody. So this really gets in the way of like that. And then also these are, like I said, these pod mics really heavy, so they tended to kind of weigh down this setup a little bit. But it is a kind of a cool concept and a really good thing for a reasonable price. These are, I think, $40 each, and they have a weighted base, a screw top thing like this, and then they have this top piece here that it actually adjusts in like multiple ways. Like it comes up a little bit more, and then you can, this is really tight right now, but you can like, tilt this differently. You can, it's got telescopic, kind of like this, so it kind of goes back, goes forth. Honestly, did the job fine. And when we get to how like we packaged all this up for an actual mobile studio, because you're probably like, Mark, this is a lot of stuff. What are you talking? How is this mobile? I'll show you, because I totally customized that whole thing. But this right here, it served us well. I'm not going to say I don't recommend it. I would definitely recommend it for this setup specifically because it works well in this context. But what I would say is that if you are even like permanent in a space, maybe consider getting things that you can just clamp on a desk or something like more of a boom arm situation, because these are kind of a little bit of a pain, but they are very good for, they're a solid product. It's just like, again, the podcast world, if you paid attention to any of the weird, weirdly paid attention to equipment that Joe Rogan uses or anything like that, or just like top level people, again, just to emulate, like to give your listeners a better experience, like especially visually, it's like it's literally like looking at somebody with this in front of their face. It's just not that great. So again, fantastic in this setup overall. Could be improved. You could be better. You could have like a better option, but again, it's what we're using. It was working fine, okay? It's $40, take it or leave it, do whatever you want. And again, obviously, all these costs change depending on how many people you have. So we built this for 2 people, and then we're like, well, we want guests on the AM and the PM, so we built the same thing twice, another version of it for if we have guests on AM and the PM. So, it's definitely customizable. One last thing I want to mention to make this pod mic even better that we just purchased for the new setup is just a little windscreen. All it is like literally a piece of foam. I'll put that in there as well. But let's transition to, because we've seen all of the stuff. That's literally pretty much all the equipment. The issue that you have now is like, okay, Mark, well, I have all this equipment, or I'm going to buy all this equipment. How do I take it from point A to point B? Rather than, with a couple things in mind. You want to make sure that your investment stays intact. You don't want it to break. I've taken this thing, like I said, from my parents' house to Amanda's house. We've done things at other couples' house for AM and the PM. Taking it out, putting it down. I've probably assembled and disassembled this setup probably 150 times, and it's all still in beautiful condition. Again, travel and everything like that. So how did I do that? Well, unfortunately, this is not like one of those setups that you just go on, B&H photo and video or whatever, and you buy a bundle for like $300 and it's like subpar equipment and it just comes all bundled together or whatever, and you have some sort of carrying case or something like that. That was an issue for me. I had to physically, go online, do the research, and figure out how to put all this together. And I think I came up with a pretty decent solution. So let's check it out here. Really 3 things. Maybe 4 if you want to count this camera bag, but I'm not even going to talk about the camera bag. It's like a $30 like just random camera bag. I'm going to talk about these things that I found, was so lucky to find, and really made a hell of a difference as far as like actually making the setup not a complete pain in the ass, because I was able to travel and transfer it everything easily. So there is a company called Condition One. They make hard cases. I believe they're based out of Texas. I'm pretty sure these are probably for like firearms or something like that, or you could store kind of anything in here, but apparently these are like waterproof, all sorts of stuff. The waterproof was a bonus if they are like super waterproof, like I'm not even 100% sure, but I never dropped them in a river, so it's fine. So we have this one, which is, I don't know the dimensions on this, I think it's a 13-inch, and this is about $50. Okay, so we'll start here. Now, really it's just like a hard, it's like a hard briefcase thing, okay? And it has two clips on it, like two open slot things here, and I'm actually not even sure what's in here, so I'm gonna be careful. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get some good shots of this, maybe even B-roll or something like that, but this is kind of like one of the most ingenious things I've ever done in my life by finding this and figuring this all out and messing with all this. So what I did is I laid out pretty much everything that you just saw. And I was like, how can I fit all of this shit into a few boxes and make it, you know, somewhat standardized still? So what I'm actually going to do, which would probably be a good idea, is I'm going to take these boxes, I'm going to show you what I did, and I'm going to pack it all up right now because it'd be a really cool thing to see. So this one was specifically for the Zoom H6, right? Like the recorder piece. What I did was these cases come with just like foam little block pads in here. And they're like literally just like, I don't even know, like 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter squares, and you just pluck them out of there and you can build whatever kind of shape that you want. So what I did was, like I said, I measured and I figured it all out and I was like, okay, I need a 13-inch case. Then I got this thing and I plucked it out so that I just pop this Zoom like right in here, right where I plucked out those things. It fits in there perfectly. It's snug, it's not going anywhere, it's fine, it's fantastic. There's also a couple other things that go in this bottom part down here. So like I needed, you know, for instance, the little splitter thing we talked about. I put that in here, down here. This Zoom H6 runs off batteries and or just like a standard power brick, so I threw that in there. And then I also have the, you know, like a long cable thing to charge it with. So I threw that in there. I'm not going to necessarily do all that, but you get the idea, okay? Like this is a incredible solution to an issue that I had. And again, links to this in the description because I'm super happy that I found these. And they did the job quite well. Now again, I will reiterate, if you change the setup at all, you might need to like get different cases obviously and figure out like a different plan for all that, but that's what I did. They're just very simple, very great cases with those pluckable things in there so you can make it exactly how you want it. There's probably competitors too, so look around. So that was just for the Zoom recorder. It had its own case obviously. It was like probably it was like kind of the most expensive thing. I wanted to make sure that it was safe. The other stuff went in these big, these much larger Condition 1 cases. I think they are about 25 inches, and currently they cost like 190 bucks each. Not the most, you know, cheap option, but again, it's going to keep your stuff nice. I've had no problems. Again, maybe they're waterproof too, so if you want to throw it in a river, like I said, you can do that. So if we pop it open here, there's 4 tabs on this one because it's huge, and you can kind of see in here again, it's the same type of concept. Okay, so this one had like 4 layers of foam or something because it was so deep, and I individually plucked each one of these things out. I went in and I said, okay, this is exactly what I need. I like outlined this, like I put these headphones in here and I outlined them with like a marker, and then I was like, okay, so you know, if I'm packing up or whatever, I put these down, I put those in there like that, boom. I haven't even packed this in such a long time because it's just been sitting in here. I'll show you the full packed one here in a second. I put the like the XLR cable in there. I took these pod mics and I put them in here like this, right? And those stands that I was telling you about, the reason they're so good is because they break apart into 3 sections, and I put them in these longer sections up here. It all worked out great, honestly. Like I said, I cannot say enough about these cases and about this whole setup here, because it's just so damn like the quality is just outrageous. You know, and again, it's a testament to, you know, some research and actually spending the money. But, you know, if you are serious about this, I would recommend that you potentially at least look into some of these items. Again, you don't have to get them all, but it's definitely something to consider. Now, this one, I will say, it gets kind of heavy when you have everything in there, just because obviously there's a lot of stuff. But I will show you, and I don't want to tip this over, so maybe I'll have to move the camera or something, but I will show you sort of the actual, what it looks like all packed up and everything like this, because it does look fantastic on the move here with the camera. So here's what we're looking at. Again, it's all just like little, and I can even give you some more close-up shots so you can kind of even see like some of my markings here, but they're just like little pluckable, you know, pieces of, you know, styrofoam or whatever, or foam really, and then, you know, you just set it up to how you want it, and boom, there you go. So we got everything that I talked about in here, and this is a set of 2. So if you just had 2 people, you could just get one of these things. And I mean, again, we can kind of go over the pricing. I think I priced everything out to about like maybe $2,500, like literally everything I talked about. So I'd probably say that like this, like a set of 2 of this, very high quality podcast stuff, maybe you're looking at like, and again, the camera's like a lot, so maybe you're looking, depending on what you do for that, you're probably looking at around, and do the math yourself, but you know, probably $1,000 to $1,500. Again, big investment for some, but if you're serious about it, you know, I would definitely consider it. So yeah, again, that's what we're looking at, and I'm just super happy with this. I can't, you know, say enough about it. We got the things in there, like I said, the stands. We have all of the everything packed away nicely. Never had any issues with this. You know, I've probably even dropped it a couple times, honestly, and never had any problems. So I just can't say enough about this mobile studio setup. All right, guys, well, that's pretty much it. So that's the whole setup. Again, high quality audio and video podcast that is extremely mobile friendly. You let me know your thoughts. Let me know if I'm ridiculous for spending this much money on a mobile studio setup. If you really like some of the stuff, if you use any of the stuff already, or if you've been looking at it, I'd be more than happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. So leave those in the comments down below. But that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe, like the video if you're enjoying the content. And I will talk to you guys in the next one.